Hi there, question, what image do you like the most? All those images you saw before had to do with contrast, even though you might not think so. And with contrast, I don't mean it in the sense that most of us photographers and videographers see it as the relative difference between light and dark areas of a print or negative. No, I want to talk about something else. The opposition of different forms, lines or colors in a work of art to intensify each element's properties and produce a more dynamic expressiveness. Today I would like to talk about 3 different forms of contrast. First, let's talk about the way that most of you thought about contrast. As most of you already know how to pull the contrast bar up in color correction, I'll just say this. If you want a contrasty image, you have to shoot a contrasty image. If you want this contrasty look, you'll need to make some parts of the image really bright and other parts really dark. This is why having cameras which go up to crazy high ISOs doesn't always mean that you'll make beautiful images in the dark. Why? Well, by pulling up the ISO, you basically make everything brighter. It's like pulling up the exposure bar in your color corrector. In dark places, there usually isn't anything really bright. So if you just bump up the ISO, then everything will become grayish and not black, without actually making something pop in the image. So if in a really dark place you want to make a contrasty look, you should light. You should actually bring some light. But good, you may already have known this. Let's move on to the second kind of contrast. Now it gets more interesting, which is good, because I kinda saw you fading away down there. Let's talk about contrast in lines and in forms. How the hell do you make contrast in lines and forms? Well, exactly as you make contrast in brightness. You need difference. This makes your shot more dynamic. Let's create some difference by using lines. Imagine a picture with a bunch of people in it, and everyone is looking in one direction. Let's say everyone is looking to the right, except for one guy. One guy is looking to the left. You're creating contrast in your composition by using different kind of directions, which makes it more interesting and which makes something in your image stand out. Your eye directly goes to the one who's not like all the other ones. Whereas a picture with everyone looking in the same direction almost looks a little too pleasing. We often need something to not feel exactly right. And there we go, we created a more dynamic shot just by using different forms, different directions in our composition. The last kind of contrast we're going to talk about is color contrast, and it's the most interesting contrast in my opinion. There are a lot of different ways to make an image more contrasty with colors. So let's go through them and I'll give a short explanation with each of them. Most of these probably are poorly translated from Dutch, I'm sorry. Also, you don't need to remember the names of these contrasts, you just need to remember what they do. The first color contrast is color against color contrast. This means that you can use any 2 or more primary colors with each other and they will look contrasty next to each other. Now what the primary colors are depends on what you do. If we're talking video, it's red, green and blue. The next contrast is cold-warm contrast. And you're actually seeing it right now. Blue, red, combine those with each other and they'll complement each other. The next contrast is complementary contrast. Which means what it says, you should just combine complementary colors with each other and they'll also complement each other. How do you know which are the complementary contrasts? Well, I could explain, but it's kind of a long explanation. Just remember this. You got RGB and then you got CMY. If you just combine those with each other, as you can see on the screen right now, well then you've got the complementary colors. So just remember RGB, CMY. The next contrast is the quality contrast, where you combine very pure colors with very muddy, desaturated colors of the same tint. Or I guess from another tint, I think that's possible as well. The last color contrast is the quantity contrast, or contrast of exhibition. Pretty fancy name, I have no idea why. This means how much of one color is used compared to how much of the other color is used. By showing a lot of red, for instance, and a little tiny bit of blue, an image can become really interesting. Those are the color contrasts. I think. You can see that it gets very technical very fast, which shows how important studying your craft is. I had to study these exact kind of contrasts, and it's not like I did it for fun, but you just have to know how your craft works. If a car technician doesn't know which kind of tires exist, well, how will he do his job, you know? Anyway, that's it. I hope I didn't bore you too much. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.